The night air among the sea brought forth the smell of salt as the boat floated along across the surface. The destination for this small vessel was the mysterious isle known as Sorna, where its passengers sought answers to their bounding questions. They had to know what exactly happened to this second site during their long absence. Claire had come from the captain's center where Alan had taken the wheel. It seemed as if he knew the course of this island very well, as if he had been there before. She had found the rest of the crew sitting around a small fire they had made. Dr. Sadler, I would like to say how good it is to see you again, she heard Malcolm say. Last time I saw you was, 1993? Those were good times, in my opinion. I would have to agree for the most part, Dr. Malcolm. Sadler tried her best to not sound awkward in this small situation. Your book on chaos theory, I actually read that. Reminds me a small bit of that little lesson you taught me. Yes. Wasn't that the time Dr. Grant ran out of a moving vehicle? Good memory. Yes, I remember that. But to be fair, I did almost the same thing. If you count outrunning a T-Rex, the same thing. But hey, we all have our moments, don't we? I think it's about the same range, Claire said as she sat down with the others. I was thinking the same thing when I did it too. Of course, I did do it in heels. But hey, who's counting footwear? Yes, Malcolm cleared his throat. I can see how that would be seen as, different, but to be fair, I didn't have a shirt on for my short time in traction, so as you can see, chaos theory does not apathy spawn. Franklin, watching the small alchemist, looked towards Maxin, hoping to move to a better subject. So, you married? The famous hunter just looked at the intern with a raised eyebrow. His face was as cold and hard as a rock, which would imitate even the strongest wills of the earth. That face was enough for one to settle for the sweet presence of some dinosaur instead. This was enough for the message to get through to him, and to keep his mouth shut. He looked down at his hands as he bit his lower lip. Okay. Zia, however, was not as intimidated by him, as she sat closer to him confidently. So, what's your deal exactly? What's in all this for you? I don't appear to understand the question, Maxin grunted. I mean, Injun never did anything for you. I recall you ever being involved in any of the incidents. So why now do you want to get involved? There was a short silence that came next between Zia and Maxin. The disgruntled hunter kept his blank expression on his face as he stared at the fire in the middle of their circle. Even while Dr. Malcolm discussed his views on chaos theory with Dr. Sattler, there was silence. This was the kind of feeling one could feel when speaking with this. There was something about Maxin that felt unearthly. He had seemed so ancient in appearance, as if he had been on the hunting trail since before even the park. Some people who knew him had even called this man the one-shot wonder of the very profession. But there was not a man who had the guts to take him head-on, or so the rumors say. These specific rumors claimed that if one were to engage him in combat, they would pray for some dinosaur to end them instead. He put his hands up before him as he felt the warmth of the fire. He stared longingly at the dancing red light with his blank expression. There was something about the way he watched it that caught even Dr. Malcolm's attention. Not even Grant, who had a reputation of being laid back and down to earth, watched at the man with a wild bewilderment. But he could not hear what the man had to say. That was taken by Zia and the others. The world we live in is a world that is ruled by the beasts. God created them for Adam, for Eve, before his grand design shaped the world today. It was a fatal mistake of a single tree fruit that caused them to become divided. As a knife cuts through the bread, so did the fruition of our hour of judgment break the world. If one is to look at the lives the creatures of this world show, we may find that they are, in many ways, similar to us in stature. We as a people overlook them. We overlook their worth. And the same goes for the dinosaurs. Man has judged them before and has seen them as remnants of an age long before theirs. They, along with every other creature upon the earth, deserve to be treated as equally as we would treat ourselves. This small speech was followed by a question by a stuttering Franklin. Yeah, I guess they would, but what about evil animals? What do we do about them? Good and evil. Maxon's voice sounded as hard as stone, with that slight Scottish accent adding to his exterior. Those words have no meaning in this world, Mr. Webb. There's no such thing as good and evil in the animal kingdom. The dinosaurs became extinct out of some strange, enigmatic catastrophe by God's hand. But man saw the opportunity to bring back this race and introduce them to the global ecosystem. They have been brought into this world by our own hands, and therefore we are responsible for the consequences shown. Mankind's endless rush for the future shows more about themselves than the creatures they experiment on. Take your Indominus Rex, for example. You've made a monster in a lab that had never been outside or seen anything outside its pen before. You believe you were in control of its life, yet you lack the basic necessities of gaining said creature's trust. Then came the Indoraptor. We had learned, did we? No, we are all of us desperate to control what we cannot even comprehend. What has happened these past years is nature's way of judging us for our perverted crimes against itself. And you, all of you, have apparently passed its tests. A small silence stayed put among the group after Maxon's rather long speech. The disgruntled hunter kept his blank expression on the fire as the boat sailed along across the night sea. Claire looked towards him with a moderate concern. So, you're saying that we've been judged? Considering the fact that each of you have established the care for these creatures that people like Bison have failed to comply with, I can easily say that your past misdeeds have just been pardoned. Maxin answered. You heard about the incident during 2015 then, Malcolm assumed. I was there. Maxin said after what looked like brief hesitation. The boat bobbled up and downward. Took my family there that day. I'd give my children a surprise they would never forget. Saved them both from the creatures with barely any effort. You were there during 2015? Franklin asked. Aye. Maxin then turned his head to stare at the horizon. No one saw his face. I bet your wife had some stories to tell after that. Maxin's voice sounded rather hurt this time. She never got to. Now that was something that really shut Franklin up. And to answer his earlier question, this had also done the same for the rest of them. They all stared at Maxin as he kept his face turned away from them. Franklin tried to motion for Claire to say something, which she did. Sorry. At first, it did not seem like Maxin would say anything. In the short time that they knew Maxin, he seemed to be an honorable kind of person, bound to a certain self-given code. But now hearing his philosophy on nature, and hearing of his past, they had now gained a new respect for the hardened person. Maxin then got to his feet and trudged over to the other side of the boat. He opened a crate and pulled out a can of beer. But in 1987. Good year, he mumbled before opening it and taking a large swig. Once he had swallowed his fill, he spoke more clearly. So what's a lookout up there, Dr. Grant? Nothing but more ocean, Grant sighed. Gosh, he thought he was one from these adventures. Right, Claire had stood up. I think it's about time we head to bed. We should be nearing the Gulf of Sorna possibly by tomorrow. Philosophically speaking, Malcolm shrugged as he headed to the lower deck. Of course, it's nighttime, and I don't remember all my directions from last time. So, hey, don't ask me. Got it. Zia rolled her eyes as she motioned for Franklin to follow suit, which he did after a glance back at Maxin. The hunter kept staring at the ocean as everyone else went below deck. All except Claire, who had come back up. Zane? She asked. He turned his head slightly, giving her a sideways glance. When this is over, if there's anything I can do, you know, to make up for a while your offer is kindly appreciated, Miss Deering, Maxin answered in his tough voice. I regret to say, they're like my own children living with my in-laws. That really is not much for me to want for, except to do more for them. Don't we all? Claire related to Maxin's situation in one way or another. She had known what it felt like to let one's family down, and she would do anything in her power to keep it from happening again. And that was what she intended to do for Maxin when all of this was blown over. Somehow. Claire! She felt herself being shaken by someone. She was barely awake now, but she could hear Franklin's voice from the side of her bed. She raised her head as she saw the intern standing beside where she was laying. The light of the morning shone inside the quarters from the outside. Franklin, what is it? Franklin seemed to be trying to find the right words to say. I think you might need to see this. Claire quickly got to her feet, got her clothes on, and hurried up to the main deck. Already up there was Zia and the others, looking over the main bow. They all looked as if they were not believing what they were looking at. Claire looked to see what exactly it was her allies were seeing. Certainly enough, it was their destination, Isla Sorna. Or at least, what was left of it.